Shabbatah, Shalom, welcome to the Philadelphia Assemblies. Now, I just did another video right before this, but I like to keep my videos about an hour in attention span so people can, finish one video and come back later and pick up another video. At least that's what we hope they'll do. Okay? Today is still the 17th day of the 5th month of the year 2021, on the Gregorian calendar. So May the 17th, 2021, and it's all on the set apart or sacred calendar. It's the second month and the 21st day of that second month of the year 5781 on the sacred or set apart or Yahuwah's calendar. So we're going to continue our expository teaching. This is part 4. Okay, we're starting in chapter 19. We're going to go for about an hour. Okay, so again, welcome to the Philadelphia Assemblies. We're going to open in prayer again and ask for anointing. Almighty Father Yahuwah, we praise you again in all things, and we ask that your Ruach HaKodesh, your Malach that you send with the message to the world that you've been sending since the creation of the world. Father, we ask that you would show us the truth, Father, that's in your word, and teach us all things. Open our minds and our hearts and give us a new heart of flesh and not of stone. Father, help us to surrender all to you through our Mashiach Yahushua. Help us to do that. And again, anoint all those today with an extra unction or anointing of your Spirit to teach them all things, Father. Let these be your words and not mine. In Yahushua's name we pray. Amen. So here we are. Part 4, this is chapter 19. And this is Thus saith Yahuwah. This continues on from where I left off in part 3. Where I said, that Yahuwah has no pleasure in the death of him that dies, saith Adonai Yahuwah. Therefore, turn yourselves from your transgressions or from your lawlessness and keep his Torah and do what? And you will live. Okay? Chapter 19, he says, moreover, or also, take up a lamentation or crying for the princes of Israel, telling Ezekiel to cry for the princes of Israel. And I'm sure he cried throughout the land. Verse 2, and say, what is your mother? A lioness. She lay down among lions. That's talking about committing adultery. She nursed her whelps among young lions. And she brought up one of her whelps, or her cubs. It became a young lion and it learned to catch the prey. Okay, that's talking about Israel and how it went to sin. It devoured men. And that's what a lot of their false teachers or prophets did. The nations also heard of him. He was taken in their pit. And they brought him, this young lion they're talking about here is Joseph or Yosef. Okay? So you can see this clearly. It says, the nations also heard of him. He was taken in a pit, and they brought him with chains unto the land of Egypt. We know what Judah, Yehuda, and all that, what they did when to Joseph, and they put him in that pit and delivered him into chains or over as a slave to Egypt. Verse 5. Now when she saw that she had waited and her hope was lost, then she took another of her whelps. Okay, so this is talking about the offspring of Israel. Obviously Israel would have been Jacob, and this is talking about the offspring. She took another of her cubs and made him a young lion. And he went up and down among the lions, and he became a young lion and learned to catch prey and devoured men. And he knew their desolate palaces, and he laid waste their cities, and the land was desolate, and the fullness thereof by the noise of his roaring. Then the nations came against him on every side from the provinces and spread their net over him. He was taken in their pit, and they put him in a cage with hooks and brought him to the king of Babylon. They brought him into the holds that his voice should no more be heard upon the mountains of Israel. We know who that is. We've been reading all this. This king that was in power when Israel went into captivity. It's going to tell us, continue, verse 10, your mother is like a vine in your blood, planted by the waters. She was fruitful and full of branches by reason of many waters, people. And she had strong rods for the scepters of them that bear rule, in other words, the princes of Israel, and her stature was exalted among the thick branches, and she appeared in her height with the multitude of her branches. But she was plucked up in fury. She was cast down to the ground. And obviously we're talking about the northern tribes, and the east wind dried up her fruit. Her strong rods were broken and withered. The fire consumed them. And now she is planted in the wilderness, been already cut off and separated in a dry and thirsty ground, and the fire is gone out of the rod, in other words, the power of her branches, which have devoured her fruit, so that she hath no strong rod to be a scepter or to rule. In other words, Israel's been cut off, the northern tribes. This is a lamentation or crying, and shall be for a lamentation or crying. Chapter 20. And it came to pass, this is thus saith Ezekiel now, and it came to pass in the 7th year, in the 5th month, the 10th day of the month, that certain of the elders of Israel came and asked for guidance of the elders of Israel, came to ask guidance of Yahuwah, and sat before me. Okay, so the elders of Israel came to Yahuwah and sat before him, this king. Okay. Then came the word of Yahuwah unto me, saying, in other words, this is Ezekiel, Son of man, speak unto the elders of Israel, and say unto them, thus saith Adonai Yahuwah, are you come to inquire of me? As I live, saith Adonai Yahuwah, I will not be inquired of by you, because you're cut off. Okay? Will you judge them, Son of man? Will you judge them according to his covenant? Cause them to know the abominations, or cause them to see the abomination of their fathers. And say unto them, thus saith Adonai Yahuwah, in the day when I chose Israel and lifted up my hand, or promised, okay, unto the descendants of the house of Jacob, and made myself known unto them in the land of Egypt, when I lifted up my hand unto them, saying, I am Yahuwah your Elohim. Okay? In the day that I lifted up my hand, or made that pledge, or made a covenant with them, unto them, to bring them forth of the land of Egypt. We know Moshe, or Moses, was the one that he made the covenant with. He was the mediator of the first covenant. To bring them forth of the land of Egypt into the land that I selected for them, flowing with milk and honey, which is the glory of all lands. Then said I unto them, you cast away every man the abominations of his eyes, and defile not yourself, or do not allow yourself to be defiled with the idols of Egypt. I am Yahuwah your Elohim. But they rebelled against me, and would not listen unto me. They did not every man cast away the abomination, or their idols, of their eyes, neither did they forsake the idols of Egypt, when I said, I will pour out my fury upon them, to accomplish my anger against them in the midst of the land of Egypt. But but I worked for my name's sake, okay, which is Israel, okay? His namesake here is Israel or Jacob, that or Yehuda, okay, that it should not be profaned or polluted before the nations, among whom they will, in whose sight, in other words, so in the sight of all the nations, I made myself known unto them, in bringing them forth out of the land of Egypt. That was a great spectacle, and that's how he made himself known to all the nations. It wasn't just for Israel, it was for all the nations. Therefore, I caused them to go forth out of the land of Egypt, and brought them into the wilderness. And I gave them my decrees, my laws, my statutes, or my Torah, and informed them my judgments, which if a man do, he shall even live in them. Certainly doesn't sound like it's a curse to keep them, does it? Moreover, or also I gave them my Sabbaths. See, Sabbath is not a curse. It's a gift. It was made for man and not man for the Sabbath. So also I gave them my Sabbaths to be a sign between me and them. And this hasn't changed. That's still the sign between Yahuwah and his people. That they might know that I am Yahuwah that set them apart, that sanctified them, or set them apart. Verse 13, but the house of Israel rebelled against me in the wilderness. They walked not in my covenant, and they despised my judgments, which if a man do, he shall even live in them. And my Sabbaths they greatly polluted or profaned. Then I said, I will pour out my fury upon them in the wilderness to consume them. That's why they walked in the wilderness 40 years. But I worked for my name's sake. Okay? His name's sake. Jacob, Israel. That it should not be polluted before the nations. In other words, he didn't. Remember, Moshe pleaded with him that if he destroyed them in the wilderness, that they would think that he failed, that Yahuwah failed and wasn't able to bring them there. Okay? Destroyed them in the wilderness. And so, this is the answer. So obviously that what Moses said made sense. Moshe said made sense to the Most High, because he's saying here, but I worked for my name's sake, that it should not be profaned. Because if he would have destroyed them, they would have been profaned before the nations, in whose sight I brought them out. Yet also I promised unto them in the wilderness that I would not bring them into the land which I had given them, flowing with milk and honey, which is the glory of all lands, Israel, because they despised my judgments and walked not in my statutes, but profaned or polluted my Sabbaths, for their heart went after their idols. See, it doesn't matter which day you come, it does matter, but if you come on the right Sabbath and your eyes are on the idols and not on Yahuwah, it doesn't matter then. 17, nevertheless my eye spared them from destroying them, neither did I make an end of them in the wilderness. As Moshe, he said he's going to make a great nation out of Moshe, but Moshe bargained with them, with the Most High. But I said unto their children, or their ben, in this point, in the wilderness, do not walk in the statutes of your fathers. In other words, the traditions of men, neither observe their judgments, nor defile yourself with their idols. I am Yahuwah, your Elohim, walk in my Torah, my statutes, and keep my judgments, my right rulings, and do them. And hallow, or set apart, my Sabbaths, and they shall be a sign between me and you, that you may know that I am Yahuwah, your Elohim. Notwithstanding, or not forsaking, the children rebelled against me. Notwithstanding, they did it anyway. The ben, or the sons, rebelled against me. They walked not in my Torah, neither kept my judgments, right rulings, to do them, which if a man do, he shall even live in them. They profaned or polluted my Sabbaths. Then I said, I would pour out my fury upon them to accomplish my anger against them in the wilderness. Nevertheless, I withheld my hand, his anger, that worked for my name's sake. In other words, the only reason he didn't kill him was for his name's sake, which at that time was Moshe and Israel as a whole, that it should not be profaned in the sight of the nations, in whose sight I brought them forth. I lifted up my hand unto them as in the wilderness. He's talking about his ruach here, his spirit, that I would scatter them among the nations and despise them through the countries. Disperse them, disperse them throughout all the nations or countries. Verse 24, because they had not executed my judgments or kept his commandments, but had despised my statutes, his right rulings, and had polluted my Sabbaths, and their eyes were after their fathers' idols. Therefore, I gave them also right rulings that were not good. Not right rulings, statutes, decrees that were not good. Like they passing their children to the fire to Moloch. Okay? What happened was he made them keep doing that after a while, so he gave them statutes or rules that weren't good and judgments whereby they should not live. And there's a good quote of that in Romans 1:24. Verse 26, and I polluted them in their own gifts. In other words, that they were polluted in their own gifts, and that they caused to pass through the fire. Remember, all that opened the womb instead of bringing them to Yahuwah as he had commanded them, the first that came forth from the matrix, that I might make them desolate, to the end that they might not know that I am Yahuwah. Therefore, Son of Man, talking to Ezekiel, speak unto the house of Israel and say unto them, thus saith Adonai Yahuwah, yet in this your fathers have defiled me, and that they have committed a trespass against me, committed adultery, because they were like a wife. For when I had brought them into the land for the which I promised to give to them, then they saw every high hill. In other words, where the other nations had done, they saw every high hill and all the thick trees, the groves where they had worshipped their idols, and they offered their sacrifices to Moloch and others, to Baalim, more than one God, more than one Lord. And there they presented the provocation of their offerings. There also they made their sweet savor and poured out their drink offerings. Then I said unto them, what is this high place or shrine whereunto you go? And the name thereof is called Bema unto this day. Okay? Therefore, telling Ezekiel to say unto the house of Israel, thus saith Adonai Yahuwah, are you polluted after the manner of your fathers, and do you commit whoredom or adultery after their abominations or detestable things? Verse 31. For when you offer your gifts, when you make your bin to pass through the fire, you pollute yourself with all their idols, even unto this day. And shall I be inquired of or asked of by you, O house of Israel? As I live, saith Adonai Yahuwah, I will not be inquired of or asked of by you. And that which comes into your mind shall not be at all that you say. In other words, whatever they think's right in their own mind shall not come into your mind, that you say, we will be as the nations, as the families of the countries, to serve wood and stone. That's what they did. As I live, saith Adonai Yahuwah, surely with a mighty hand and that's talking about his ruach, and with a stretched out arm, same thing, and with fury poured out will I rule over you. With his ruach, his spirit, that's how he's going to rule over them. And I will bring you out from the people, and will gather you out of the countries wherein you are scattered with a mighty hand, and with a stretched out arm, and with fury poured out. That's his power he's talking about. And I will bring you unto the wilderness of the people, and there will I plead with you face to face. Now, this is where they're talking about, and they're going to take them to this place before our Messiah comes back, okay? And plead with them, the rebels, okay? Like as I pleaded with your fathers in the wilderness of the land of Egypt, so will I plead with you, saith Adonai Yahuwah. And I will cause you to pass under the rod. That's talking about punishment. And I will bring you into the bond or the agreement of the covenant. Now, when's he going to do that? He's going to do that during the millennial reign. Okay? That's what that's all talking about. Talking about us, the priesthood after the order of Melchizedek, which is made up of both physical and grafted in spiritual seed. They're all spiritual. They're going to have to come under that rod. Okay? And I will bring you unto the bond, unto the oblation of the covenant. Okay? Obligation of the covenant. Talking about during that 1,000-year reign, that's what all that is, bring them under that. Now, does that mean he's going to raise everybody from the dead? I'm not sure it does. I think it's talking about those that are alive during that time. He will plead with those rebels, and he's going to do that through the Melchizedek priesthood, through Messiah, Mashiach, and all those in the first resurrection, to those living during that time. And I will purge out from among you rebels, and them that transgress against me, I will bring them forth out of the country where they live. Let's talk about the regathering of all those when our Messiah returns. And they shall not enter into the land of Israel, and you shall know that I am Yahuwah. And they shall not enter into the land of Israel until they come under covenant. As for you, O house of Israel, thus saith Adonai Yahuwah, go you, serve ye every one his idols. So there's one of those statutes that's not good. And hereafter also, if you will not listen unto me, and start keeping his covenant, turn from your wickedness, but pollute you my set apart name, no more with your gifts and with your idols. In other words, he won't accept them. Okay, for in my set apart mountain, in the mountain of the height of Israel, saith Adonai Yahuwah, there shall all the house of Israel, all of them in the land, serve me. There will I accept them, and there will I require your offerings and your first fruits, okay, or choices of your gifts or oblations. With all your set apart things, I will accept you with your sweet savor when I bring you out from the people and gather you out of the countries wherein you have been scattered. That's talking about physical Israel, and to bring them into that, and to bring them under that rod of iron. They're going to have to agree to come under the leadership of the Mashiach and keep his covenant. Come into it. That's what he's talking about. And I will be set apart, sanctified in you before the nations. All those that come in they're going to be sanctified, because they're going to be keeping it. They're going to be ruled by a rod of iron. Verse 42. And you shall know that I am Yahuwah when I will bring you into the land of Israel, unto the country for which I promised to give it to your fathers. And there shall you remember your ways and all your doings, wherein you have been defiled, and you shall despise yourself in your own sight for all your evils that you have committed. Well, it don't sound good, does it? And you shall know that I am Yahuwah when I have wrought or worked with you for my name's sake. not according to your wicked ways, nor according to your corrupt doings, O you house of Israel, saith Yahuwah, Adonai Yahuwah. Moreover, the word of Yahuwah came unto me, saying, okay, Son of man, speaking to Ezekiel, set your face toward the south and drop, speak out against the south and prophesy against the forest of the south field. And say, and then again, obviously he's talking about the Yehudim, that's the south field, those that lived in the south of Israel. And say to the forest of the south, hear the word of Yahuwah, which is the Ruach. Thus saith Adonai Yahuwah, behold, I will kindle a fire in you, and it shall devour, consume, burn up every green tree in the field, and every dry tree. The flaming flame shall not be put out, and all faces from the south to the north shall be burned therein. That's all the rebels he's talking about in the lake of fire. They'll be both physical and spiritual. I mean, people that living during those times that have ended up, they're going to the lake of fire, not just Israel. And all flesh shall see that I, Yahuwah, have kindled it, set it on fire, because it's going to be his Ruach that burns them up. It shall not be put out. Then said I, Adonai Yahuwah, they say of me, does he not speak parables? Chapter 21. And the word of Yahuwah came unto me, saying, Son of man, set your face or turn toward Jerusalem, and drop or speak, face towards Jerusalem, and speak out against the set apart places, and prophesy against the land of Israel. Those set apart places, again, are the places that they set up. And say to the land of Israel, thus saith Yahuwah, behold, I am against you, and will draw forth my sword out of its sheath, and will cut off from you the righteous and the wicked. Seeing then that I will cut off from you the righteous and the wicked, cut off from Israel, the nation, it'll no more be that nation that's preferred. Therefore shall my sword go forth out of its sheath against all flesh from the south to the north, all of Israel. That all flesh may know that I, Yahuwah, have drawn forth my sword out of its sheath. It shall not return any more. Not Israel won't return anymore, but his sword, until his wrath is past. Sigh therefore, you son of man, with a broken heart, and with bitter grief before their eyes. And it shall be, when they say unto you, why do you say this? That you shall answer for the tidings, because it comes, and every heart shall melt, and all hands shall be feeble, and every spirit shall faint, or every attitude shall change, and all knees shall be weak as water, because all knees will bow. Behold, it comes, and shall be brought to pass, saith Adonai Yahuwah. Again, the word of Yahuwah came unto me, saying, Son of man, Ezekiel, son of man, prophesy and say, thus saith Yahuwah. Say, a sword is sharpened and also polished. It is sharpened to make a terrible slaughter. It is great that it may glitter. Should we then make mirth or joy? Dispersing the rod of my son as every tree. Against every one, the rod of my son as every tree. Verse 11, and he hath given it to be shined, and it may be handled. This sword is sharpened, and it is shined, to give it unto the hand of the slayer. Cry and howl, son of man, for it shall be upon my people. It will be upon all the princes of Israel. Terrors by reason of the sword shall be upon my people. Smite therefore, or strike therefore upon your thigh, the sword, because it is a test. And what if the sword despise even the rod? Talking about the Mashiach. It shall be no more. It'll be destroyed. See, that's what the 1,000-year reign is all about, is to bring those that are going to come into the kingdom and those that are not. Saith Adonai Yahuwah. You therefore, son of man, prophesy and smite your hand, or strike your hands together, like that. And let the sword be doubled the third time, the sword of the slain. It is the sword of the great men that are slain, which enters into the private chambers. I have set the point of the sword against all their gates, talking about Israel, that their heart may faint, or give in, or fall down, and their ruins be multiplied. Ah, it is made right, it is prepared for the slaughter. Go you one way or other, either on the right hand or on the left, whosoever your face is set. In other words, just like in the time of Moshe, when in the desert, he said, those that are with me, get on this side, and those that are going against me, get on the other side. And that's what's saying here too. I will also smite my hands, or bam, strike my hands together, and I will cause my fury to rest, to cease. I, Yahuwah, have said it, or spoken it. The word of Yahuwah came unto me again, saying, also, you son of man, appoint you 2 ways, that the sword of the king of Babylon may come. In other words, come upon Israel. Both of the two shall come forth out of one land. That was the Chaldeans and Babylon. Okay? Out of one land, and choose you a place. Choose it at the head of the way to the city. Appoint a way, that the sword may come to Rabath of the Ammonites, and to Yehuda in Jerusalem, the fortified. Jerusalem was fortified because it had a wall around it. For the king of Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar I'm adding, stood at the parting of the way, at the head of the 2 ways, to seek an omen or divination. He made his arrows bright. He consulted with idols. He foretold to foretell the future. That's why he did it. And his right hand was the divination or the omens for Jerusalem, to appoint captains, to open the mouth in the slaughter, to lift up the voice with shouting, to appoint battering rams against the gates, to build a ramp and to build a fort, and it shall be unto them as a false omen to Babylon in their sight, to them that have sworn oaths, but he will call to remembrance the iniquity, talking about Israel that had sworn oaths, that they, in other words, to keep the covenant, that they may be taken by Babylon. Therefore, thus saith Adonai Yahuwah, because you have made your lawlessness to be remembered, and that your transgressions are uncovered, so that in all your doings your sins do appear, because I say that you are come to remember, you shall be taken with the hand. And the hand at this time that he was using was Nebuchadnezzar. And you profane wicked princes of Israel. He's talking about those profane, those wicked princes or rulers of Israel, whose day is come when punishment shall have an end. Thus saith Adonai Yahuwah, remove the turban or the crown, and take off the crown. This shall not be the same. Exalt him that is low, and abase him that is high. See, wrapped a towel around their head to put on before they put on the crown, so the crown didn't dig into their head. That's when they say the turban or the diadem. They're talking about a turban that they wrapped around their head. And then he says, remove that turban and then take off the crown. This shall not be the same. Exalt him that is low and abase him that is high. In other words, exalt the one that's low, make him, that's what the Most High does, and bring the one that's high down low. I will overturn it, and it shall be no more, talking about Israel, until he come whose right it is. And that's talking about our Mashiach, and he has not come yet. And I will give it in him. Got a capital H on I am there, because it's talking about our Mashiach. Verse 28, and you, son of man, prophesy, and this is talking about Ezekiel, prophesy and say, thus saith Adonai Yahuwah concerning the Ammonites and concerning their reproach, even say, the sword is drawn, for the slaughter it is polished to commune because of the glitter, while they see vanity unto you, in other words, worthlessness, while they divine a lie unto you, to bring you upon the necks of them that are slain of the wicked, whose day is come, when your lawlessness or your punishment shall have an end. Shall I cause it to return unto its sheath? He's asking, should he put away the sword that's come against Israel? I will judge you in the place where you were created, in the land of your birth. All these were born in Israel. And I will pour out my indignation upon you. I will blow against you in the fire of my anger, and deliver you into the hand of the brutal men, and skillfully to destroy you. You shall be for fuel to the fire. See, right now, this is pointing towards the great white throne judgment, and those according to their deeds will be tossed into that fire. Your blood shall be in the midst of the land. You shall be no more remembered, for I, Yahuwah, has spoken it. Chapter 22. Moreover, the word of Yahuwah, the Ruach HaKodesh, came unto me, Ezekiel, saying, now you, son of man, will you judge the bloody city? Yes, you shall show her all your abominations. Then shall you, thus saith Yahuwah Elohim, thus saith Adonai Yahuwah, the city sheds blood in the middle of it, that her time may come, and make idols against herself to defile herself. You are become guilty in your blood that you have shed. In other words, the innocent people's blood that they shed, they've become guilty. Have defiled yourself in your idols which you have made, and you have caused your days to draw near, and are come even unto your years. Therefore have I made you a reproach unto the nations, and a laughing stock to all countries. Those that be near and those that be far from you shall mock you, which are infamous and in turmoil. Behold, the princes of Israel, every one were in you to their power to shed blood. In you have they set light by father and mother. In the midst of you have they dealt by extortion with the stranger. In you have they mistreated the fatherless and the widow. You have despised my set apart things, and have profaned my Sabbaths, talking to Israel. In you are men that carry tails to shed blood. In you they eat upon the mountains before these idols. In the midst of you they commit lewdness. In you have they uncovered their father's nakedness, which would be their mother's. In you have they humbled her that was set apart for impurity. One hath committed abomination with his neighbor's wife, committed adultery. Another hath lewdly defiled his daughter-in-law. In other words, had sex with his own daughter-in-law. And another in you hath humbled his sister, his father's daughter. In you have they taken gifts to shed blood. You have taken interest and increase, broken his covenant in so many ways, and you have greedily gained of your neighbors by extortion, and has forgotten me, saith Adonai Yahuwah. Behold, therefore, I have smitten my hand. In other words, clapped his hands together at their dishonest gain, which you have made, and at your blood which has been in the midst of you. Can your heart endure, or can your hands be strong in the days that I deal with you? I, Yahuwah, have spoken it and will do it. And I will scatter you among the nations and disperse you in the countries, and will consume, or put an end to you, and put an end to your filthiness, put the end to your filthiness. Verse 16, and you shall take your inheritance in yourself. In other words, that's all you're going to get in the sight of the nations. That punishment that you're getting, that's your inheritance according to your deeds. And you shall know that I am Yahuwah. And the word of Yahuwah came unto me, Ezekiel, saying, Son of man, the house of Israel is to me become dross. In other words, he's refined it, and all that's left is enough to throw away. All they are brass and tin and iron and lead in the midst of the furnace. They are even the dross of silver. Therefore, thus saith Adonai Yahuwah, because you are all become dross, behold, therefore I will gather you into the midst of Jerusalem, as they gather silver and brass and iron and lead and tin, unto the midst of the furnace, to blow the fire upon it, to melt it, so will I gather you in my anger and in my fury, and I will leave you there and melt you. Talking about in the great white throne judgment, burn you up. Yes, I will gather you and blow upon you in the fire of my anger, and you shall be melted into the midst thereof. As silver is melted in the midst of the furnace, so shall you be melted in the midst thereof. And you shall know that I, Yahuwah, have poured out my fury upon you. And the word of Yahuwah came unto me, Ezekiel, Son of man, say unto her, you art the land that is not cleansed, nor rained upon in the day of indignation. There is a conspiracy of her prophets, false prophets obviously, and I added that. And in the midst thereof a roaring lion raving the prey, ravening the prey. They have devoured lives, people. They have taken the treasure and precious things. They have made her many widows in the midst thereof. Her priests, her Kohanim, have violated my Torah and have profaned my set-apart things. They have put no difference between the clean and the unclean. Neither have they showed difference of the profane and let me read that again. They have made no difference between the set apart and the profane or the rejected. Neither have they showed difference between the unclean and the clean, and have hid their eyes from my Sabbaths, and am profaned among them. Her princes in the midst thereof are like wolves, tearing the prey, to shed blood and to destroy lives, to get dishonest gain. And her prophets have smeared them with whitewash, seeing verity and divining lies unto them. In other words, prophesying lies unto them, saying, Thus saith Adonai Yahuwah, when Yahuwah have not spoken. The people of the land have oppression and exercised robbery and exhortation, the poor and exhorted the poor and the needy. Yes, they have oppressed the stranger wrongfully. We're doing that here in this country right now. And I sought for a man among them that should make up the hedge and stand in the gap. Okay, be the hedge to stand in the gap before me for the land, that I should not destroy it, but I found none. Therefore I have poured out my indignation upon them. I have consumed them with the fire of my wrath, or anger. Their own way have I repaid upon their heads, saith Adonai Yahuwah. Chapter 23. The word of Yahuwah came again unto me, again Ezekiel, saying, Son of man, there were two women, the daughters of one mother. They committed whoredoms in Egypt. They committed whoredoms in their youth. There were their breasts pressed, and there they bruised the teats of their virginity. And the names of them were Ahorla the elder, and Aholibah her sister. And they were mine, and they bare sons and daughters. Thus were their names Samaria, okay, that's the northern tribes, Aholah, and Jerusalem, Aholibah. Okay, so he's telling you the northern and the southern tribes. And Eloah played the harlot when she was mine, northern tribes. And she doted on her lovers, on Assyria, her neighbors, which were clothed with blue captains and rulers, all of them desirable young men, horsemen riding upon horses. Thus she committed her whoredoms with them, with all them that were the chosen men of Assyria, and with all on whom she doted, with all their idols she defiled herself. Neither left she her whoredoms from the time in Egypt, for in her youth they lay with her, and they bruised the breast of her virginity, and poured their whoredom upon her. Wherefore I have delivered her into the hands of her lovers, into the hand of the Assyrians, upon whom she doted. In other words, they were dispersed in there, and they interbred with those. That's why they're Samaritans. Okay? Now, verse 10. These uncovered her nakedness. They took her Ben, her sons, and her daughters, and slew her with the sword. And she became a byword among the women, for they had executed judgment upon her. And when her sister Aholibah saw this, she was more corrupt in her inordinate love than she, and in her whoredoms more than her sister in her whoredoms. She doted upon the Assyrians, her neighbors, captains and rulers, clothed with most gorgeous horsemen, riding upon horses, all of them desirable young men. In other words, followed after them instead of after the Most High. Then I saw that she was defiled, that they took both one way, and that she increased her whoredoms. For when she saw men portrayed upon the wall, the images of the Chaldeans, portrayed with vermilion, girdled with belts upon their loins, exceedingly in dyed attire upon their heads, all of them princes to look to after the manner of Babylonians, of Chaldea, the land of their nativity, Israel's nativity, because that's where they ultimately came from. And as soon as she saw them, in other words, Abraham came out of that land, and as soon as she saw them with her eyes, she doted upon them, Israel did, and sent messengers, malachim, same as you would call an angel, unto them unto Chaldea. And the Babylonians sons of Babel, the Babylonians, that's what that means, came to her into the bed of a lover, and they defiled her with their whoredoms, and she was polluted with them, and her mind was disgusted with them. So she discovered her whoredoms and discovered her nakedness. Then my mind was alienated from her, like as my mind was alienated from her sister. In other words, cut off, just like northern tribes, now the southern tribes. Yet she multiplied her whoredoms in calling to remembrance the days of her youth, wherein she had played the harlot in the land of Egypt, the whole tribe. For she doted upon their lovers, whose flesh is as the flesh of the donkeys, and whose issue is like the issue of horses. Thus, for this you called to remembrance the immoral conduct of your youth, in bruising your teats by the Egyptians for the paps of their youth. Therefore, O Ahilabah, thus saith Adonai Yahuwah, behold, I will, or in other words, the Yehudim, behold, I will raise up your lovers against you, from whom your mind is alienated, and I will bring them against you on every side, the Babylonians and all the Chaldeans, Pekod and Shoah, and Koah, and all the Assyrians with them, all of them desirable young men, captains and rulers, great masters and renowned, or famous, all of them riding upon horses. And they shall come against you with chariots, wagons, and wheels, and with an assembly of people, which shall set you large shields and shield and helmet round about you, and I will set judgment before them, and they shall judge you according to your judgments. And I will set my jealousy against you, and you shall deal furiously with you. And they shall deal furiously with you. They shall take away your nose and your ears, and your remnant shall fall by the sword. Not Yahuwah's remnant, but their remnant. They shall take the bin and your daughters, and the survivors shall be devoured by fire. They shall also strip you out of your clothes and take away your fine jewelry. Thus I will make your lewdness to cease from you, and your whoredoms brought from the land of Egypt, so that you shall not lift up your eyes unto them, nor remember Egypt anymore. When the millennium comes, they won't remember any of that anymore. And again, Satan will be bound, so there won't be no temptation going on then. For thus saith Adonai Yahuwah, behold, I will deliver you into the hand of them whom you hate. Okay, unto the hand of them from whom your mind is alienated. And they shall deal with you despitefully, and shall take away all your labor, and shall leave you naked and bare, and the nakedness of your whoredoms shall be discovered, be uncovered, both your immoral conduct and your whoredoms. I will do these things unto you because you have gone a whoring after the nations, and because you are polluted with their idols. You have walked in the way of your sister, which would have been the northern tribes, Aholah, that's who they walked in the way of, which is the northern tribes. I will do these things unto you because you have gone a whoring after the nations, and because you are polluted with their idols. Now remember that when you talk about the daughters of the whore. Okay? Think about this. This all connects. It's not a separate deal. It's not what you think it is. You have walked in the way of your sisters. Therefore will I give her cup unto your hand. Thus saith Adonai Yahuwah, you shall drink of your sister's cup, deep. Okay, and this was the northern and the southern tribes. and large. You shall be laughed to scorn. And when they're talking about her mother, they're talking about the whole nation of Israel when it was one kingdom. And that would have been the whore and her daughters. Okay? You shall drink of your sister's cup, deep and large, and you shall laugh to scorn and had in derision. It contains much. Now, there's type and countertype. Same thing might be going on today within the body of Mashiach, or the so-called body of Mashiach, just like the so-called nation of Israel. You shall be filled with drunkenness and sorrow, with the cup of horror and desolation, with the cup of your sister Samaria. Thou shalt even drink it and suck it out, and you shall bring the shards thereof and pluck of your hand of your own breasts. For I have spoken it, saith Adonai Yahuwah. Therefore thus saith Adonai Yahuwah, because you have forgotten me, that's what they had done, and went after other gods and cast me behind your back, therefore bear you also your immoral conduct and your whoredoms. Yahuwah said even more unto me, Son of man, will you judge Aholah and Aholibah? Yes, declare unto them their abominations. Okay, the northern, the southern tribes, which were the offspring of the whole nation of Israel under David. Okay, that they have committed adultery, because the whole nation of Israel committed adultery when they were one, that they have committed adultery, and blood is in their hands, and with their idols have they committed adultery, and have also caused their ben, or their sons, whom they bear unto me, because the first one was supposed to go unto Yahuwah, to pass them through the fire to devour them. Moreover, this they have done unto me. They have defiled my sanctuary in the same day, and have profaned my Sabbaths. For when they had slain their ben, or their sons, to their idols, then they came the same day into my sanctuary. They were unclean, to profane it. And lo, thus have they done in the midst of my house. And furthermore, that you have sent for men to come from far, unto whom a Malach, a messenger, a Malach was sent, and lo, they came, for whom thou didst wash yourself, paintest your eyes, and decked yourself with ornaments, to play the harlot, the whore. Verse 41, and sat upon the stately bed, and a table prepared before it. Thereupon you have set my incense and my oil on their table, and a voice of multitude being at ease with her, and with men of the common sort, okay, or the nations, were brought Sabians, okay, or drunkards, from the wilderness, which put bracelets upon their hands, and beautiful crowns upon their heads. Then said I unto her that was old in the adulteries, had been in them all along, will they now commit whoredoms with her, and she with them? Yet they went in unto her as they go into a woman that playeth the harlot, so went they in unto Aholah and Aholibah, the immoral woman. And the righteous men, they shall judge them after the manner of adulteresses, and after the manner of women that shed blood, because they are adulteresses, and blood is in their hands. Now, see, when you start reading the book of Revelation, you better start taking into interpretation the book of Ezekiel and Isaiah and Jeremiah and the rest, as well as just Daniel and Revelation. For thus saith Adonai Yahuwah, I will bring upon a company upon them, an army, and will give them to be removed and plundered. And the company shall stone them with stones, and dispatch them with their swords. They shall slay their sons, their ben, and their daughters, and burn up their houses with fire. Thus I will cause lewdness to cease out of the land, that all women may be taught not to do after their lewdness. And they shall repay your lewdness upon you, and you shall bear the sins of your idols, and you shall know that I am Yahuwah. We're going to stop part 4 right there. We're going to start part 5. So I covered 19 through 23. 19 through 23 chapters in part 4. Okay? I'm going to write it on this one. 19 through 23, part 4. Okay? And again, if you haven't yet subscribed to our YouTube channel, which is Philadelphia Assemblies at youtube.com, remember, it costs you nothing. It costs you absolutely nothing to do so. And there's so much to be gained from just hearing the word of Yahuwah. And we're doing that expository teaching here, see, so that you get to hear the direct word of Yahuwah, and you can decide if it's being, expounded upon in a correct way. So hit that subscribe button, and give us a thumbs up if you like this video, share it, and hit that notification bell. And again, may Yahuwah bless until we meet again.